Perhaps more than any other state and rural culture in America, the term "living off the land" is associated with Alaska. That phrase and the idea of subsistence living is synonymous with the Alaskan bush lifestyle. Because of this popular conception, without specific knowledge of the state, one might logically assume that the Alaskan countryside is a continuous cornucopia of ready foodstuffs naturally suited for such subsistence living off the land. In actuality, the truth is that Alaska, in its natural state, is the most inhospitable and least suited state in the Union for establishing genuine self-sufficiency. Those terms took root and were popularly associated with the Alaskan bush living principally to convey the individualism and social independence that rural living imparts. Living off the land and subsistence living are entirely valid notions to define a political status rather than a state of self-sufficiency, but the truth is that because Alaska is so bereft of edible food but for wild game, no other rural population is more dependent upon the agricultural and industry of the outside world for so much of its basic comforts and most of its calories. Not knowing this fact about the Alaskan wilderness in its natural state, or perhaps in some cases not believing it, has killed many people, some famously. The criteria used to assemble this inventory are derived from a philosophy that emphasizes practicality, durability, and versatility. With gear of this nature, I will explain the basis for my opinions and try to inform you of the alternatives. Using this process will help you develop insightful understanding and qualification to form your own opinions. Most of these supplies were selected based on their kinship with the gear used by the old-timers and the proven practical utility they possess. Many of the customs and techniques have fallen out of use today, and most of the specialized gear for the woods is either non-existent or exists only in impractical, overpriced, recreational, or decorative versions. At this moment, I am looking at a so-called sportsman's catalog specializing in outerwear that is promoting rag-wool military surplus socks by assuming that the neutral salt and pepper color goes well with anything. When a major catalog selling hunting gear to outdoorsmen prioritizes color-coordinated fashion, you can assume gear for real use is hard to come by. Building a small log cabin requires very little money or supplies. This is an outpost sort of cabin, not the size you would build for long-term living at a true homestead site. A cabin of this size is small, yes, but it compactly and efficiently budgets sufficient space for everything you will need to include and do throughout the winter: beds, stove, kitchen, counter, shelves for hardware, books, miscellaneous, table for eating and performing daily tasks. More so than any other category in your inventory of supplies, your stock of foods will most closely resemble that of the original pioneers. Young couples in the spring of 1905, shopping at the trading post in new-founded Fairbanks, were filling a list of foods almost indistinguishable from the one you will be filling. The foods you both purchase are the same because they have to be the same. After your initial perishable groceries are eaten up or spoiled, you and their menus will become nearly identical: breakfast, lunch, and dinner. To live a subsistence life means to strip it down to little more than what is necessary or sufficient to your baseline of need and desire. Nothing you own will exceed this standard of value, so your possessions take on vital meaning, beyond mere materialism, in a way that most of the material things we own in our modern lives do not. What do we buy or own that we use every day, that is not more than what we need, more expensive, newer, fancier, bigger, than we need for its purpose or for our happiness. Nearly everything in our lives far exceeds sufficiency for our health and happiness, even those who are not so well off. It's just the way of our excessive culture, and we all succumb to its standards. To be part of society, and not just grudgingly live among the people like a judgmental alien, one must adopt its customs and values, at least enough to maintain relatability, and enough conformity to develop a sense of shared destiny and common cause. But the sort of supplies required for subsistence, that is, using and producing only what you need, without waste or excess, represents another way of living and a whole other standard of value, worlds apart.